Red wine spilled first. Then came the sound of glass giving up, scattering across the marble like broken pride. The entire dining room of the Azure Pearl fell silent. Forks hovered mid-air. Every eye turned to the corner table where Daniel Hartman stood,
You are
his tailored
incompetent.
suit catching the
Now get out of my
chandelier's gold
sight
light.
before I have
He
you
wasn't
fired.
angry about the spill. He was angry about the waitress who'd caused
You
it.
are incompetent.
Elena Cruz froze
now get
beside
out of my
him,
sight
her
before I
pulse
have you
drumming
fired.
in her ears. The crimson stains spread across the white floor, creeping toward her shoes. Daniel's voice sliced through the hush. Do you even understand what I said? Or should I draw you a picture? Before she could speak, he leaned closer, smirking. You said you speak Arabic, right? Then prove it. Read this menu in flawless Arabic. Every dish, every accent. Do that and I'll give you €1,000,000. Fail, and maybe find another line of work. Across the table, Omar and Karim Al-Zahid, Daniel's Middle Eastern investors, exchanged uneasy glances. The deal they were here to seal suddenly felt less like business and more like theater. Elena drew a quiet breath. The trembling in her hands stopped. Would you like me to begin now, sir? Daniel folded his arms. Go ahead. Let's be entertained. Her voice came low at first, steady, deliberate. Then it lifted, fluid and lyrical, gliding through Arabic consonants with a natural rhythm that turned words into music. She didn't just translate the menu. She told a story. She described saffron rice like liquid sunlight, the sea base perfumed with lemon, the faint smoke of cardamom drifting through the night. The investors leaned forward, enchanted. Daniel's grin began to crack. When Elena finished, she met his gaze. In Arabic, she said gently, respect has no price tag, Mr. Hartman. The silence that followed was heavier than applause. Omar broke it first. That, he said, smiling, was perfect. My father would have asked you to host our next dinner. Karim nodded. Flawless, and with dignity. Daniel forced a laugh that sounded brittle. You're all too kind. He reached for his glass before remembering it was shattered at his feet. Elena spoke again, calm but firm. I appreciate your offer, sir, but I don't need your money. If you wish to keep your word, there's a literacy center downtown. They teach immigrants Spanish so they can work with pride. Perhaps your wager could help them. Omar smiled. A fine idea. Daniel's eyes hardened. It was just a joke. Karim's voice cooled. Some jokes cost more than they earn. Elena bowed slightly, gathered the shards of crystal, and walked toward the kitchen corridor. No one stopped her. Behind her, Arabic murmurs filled the room again. No longer light conversation, but quiet judgment. Daniel sat still, heat crawling up his neck. The laughter he used to command now belonged to memory. Omar and Karim spoke in low tones he couldn't catch. Whatever they said, he knew the tone. Disappointment. In the narrow corridor, Elena exhaled. Her palms still shook. Chef Rafik turned from his station, watching her with knowing eyes. You handled that with grace, he said softly. It didn't feel like grace, she murmured. It felt like surviving. Rafik smiled faintly. Sometimes they're the same thing. Back in the dining room, Omar's calm voice carried, if a man can't respect the one who serves him, how will he respect those who partner with him? Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked at his reflection in the window, the proud, polished face of a man who finally saw a crack. Outside, waves struck the harbor wall, washing away the echo of shattering glass. For the first time in years, Daniel Hartman felt the weight of silence he couldn't buy his way out of. By the next morning, the Azure Pearl was quieter than usual. The scent of fresh pastries drifted through the lobby, but no one spoke Daniel Hartman's name above a whisper. He sat alone at a corner table, coffee cooling untouched, scrolling through his phone. Every notification felt like a bruise. A news blog quoting an anonymous source from last night's investor dinner. A trending clip titled, The Waitress Who Silenced a Billionaire. Someone had filmed it, of course they had. He replayed the 30-second clip. Elena's calm voice, his own smirk, Omar's applause. The comments burned more than the headlines. Humility looks better than money. Respect costs nothing, Daniel. He turned off the screen, jaw tight. She humiliated me, he muttered. Across town, Elena was tying her apron for the breakfast shift. She hadn't looked at her phone all morning. Chef Rafik slipped her a croissant and said, "Your video's everywhere." "My what?" He showed her. The clip had already reached 2 million views. "You handled yourself with grace," he said. "But the world loves drama. Be careful what comes next." Elena stared at the phone, bewildered. Her voice online sounded older, wiser. "I never wanted attention," she said quietly. "Attention doesn't ask permission," Rafik replied. That afternoon, Daniel entered his suite overlooking the harbor. The curtains were open, flooding the room with sunlight that felt too honest. He poured himself a drink he didn't want, then answered a call from Omar Al-Zahid. "Daniel." Omar's tone was polite, almost sorrowful. "Kareem and I discussed last night. We'll be stepping back from the partnership. Your words embarrassed our team and our culture." Daniel straightened. "Come on, Omar. You know I was joking." The press twisted it. "Respect isn't a joke," Omar interrupted gently. "We invest in people, not just products. I hope you understand." The line went dead. Daniel threw the glass against the wall. It didn't shatter as loudly as the first one. The silence afterward hurt more. Evening came early. Elena left work later than usual, the sky over Barcelona turning copper. Outside the hotel, reporters waited. "Miss Cruz, is it true you refused the €1,000,000? Are you and Mr. Hartman speaking again?" She shook her head, covering her face with her hand. "Please, I'm just a waitress," she said softly. A small child tugged her sleeve. A girl selling flowers by the curb. "Miss, you're famous," the child whispered. "My mama said you spoke like a queen." Elena smiled and bought the wilted daisies. "Tell your mama words only have power when spoken with kindness," she said, tucking one flower behind the girl's ear. 2 blocks away, Daniel watched the scene from his car. He had come not to apologize, but to see the woman who'd dismantled his image in a single sentence. She looked smaller in person, softer, but something about her composure unsettled him more than her words ever had. He stepped out, but by the time he reached the hotel entrance, she was gone. Inside, he stopped at the front desk. "Elena Cruz, does she still work here?" The clerk hesitated. "She asked for a few days off, sir." He nodded, exhaling. Tell her Mr. Hartman would like to speak with her when she returns." The clerk raised an eyebrow. "I think she's already said everything she needed to, sir." Daniel managed a weak smile. "Maybe so." Back in her tiny apartment above a bakery, Elena opened an email from the Literacy Center. They wrote, "Your story inspired dozens to donate. We just received an anonymous €1,000,000 pledge." She stared at the screen, heart racing. No signature. Just a line at the bottom. "For those finding their voice." Her fingers trembled. Maybe he had listened after all. She turned off the lamp and sat by the window, watching city lights shimmer across the harbor. The same harbor Daniel had watched that morning, now reflecting something different in both of them. For him, it was the first night without applause. For her, it was the first night she truly believed quiet strength could echo louder than power. And somewhere between those lights and their silence, change had already begun. 2 days later, Daniel's name dominated every business headline in Europe. Tech titan faces backlash for disrespecting Waitress.f. Investors withdraw after viral video. For the first time in his life, Daniel Hartman wasn't being called a visionary, he was being called arrogant. He sat in the back of a town car, scrolling through comment after comment. People he'd once mentored were turning away, companies canceling meetings. Even his PR manager refused to take his calls. When the driver asked, "Where to, sir?" Daniel stared out at the rainy skyline. "Drive to the old quarter," he said quietly. "There's a place I need to see." The Literacy Center was small and worn, its faded sign half obscured by ivy. Inside, a handful of volunteers arranged books on creaking shelves. A young man recognized him instantly. "You're—" "Yes," Daniel interrupted. "I know who I am." He reached into his coat, pulling out a folded envelope. I made a donation anonymously. I just wanted to see what it became. The volunteer smiled. It became hope, he said simply. He led Daniel to a small classroom. Children of different ages were seated at desks, tracing Spanish words in chalk, their accents clumsy but eager. The teacher greeted him warmly. "You're the donor?" Daniel hesitated. "Just someone trying to learn respect." She smiled. "Then you're in the right place." As he watched the children recite new words, Daniel's throat tightened. A boy stumbled on a phrase, then laughed when his classmate helped him. The room was filled with the kind of warmth money couldn't manufacture. When he stepped outside again, he realized how small his empire looked compared to this. A few bright faces learning to belong. That night, Elena returned to work for the first time since the incident. The lobby buzzed softly with the hum of conversation, but something had changed. Guests nodded at her with recognition, not pity. Chef Rafik handed her a note sealed in a hotel envelope. "Someone left this for you," he said. She unfolded it carefully.
Elena.
"Some mistakes don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope this one can earn understanding. I'm learning not about language but about people. If you'll allow it, I'd like to meet, not as a billionaire and a waitress, but as two human beings. Daniel." She read it twice, then folded it neatly and slipped it into her apron pocket. "When?" she asked quietly. "He's waiting on the terrace," Rafik replied. The terrace overlooked the harbor, the same horizon that had witnessed his humiliation and her grace. Daniel stood there, hands in his pockets, the wind ruffling his hair. He looked nothing like the man who'd once commanded the room. When she approached, he turned slowly. "I wasn't sure you'd come. I wasn't sure you deserved it," she said calmly. He nodded. "You're right. I didn't." A pause lingered, not awkward, but honest. "I wanted to apologize in private before I even think of doing it publicly," he said. "You taught me something I should have known years ago. That respect isn't given with money. It's earned through humility." Elena studied him. "Do you believe that? Or are you just saying it because the world is watching?" Daniel met her gaze. "I'm saying it because for the first time in years, I mean every word." The waves crashed softly below them. Elena's eyes softened but stayed cautious. "Actions speak louder, Mr. Hartman." "Then let me prove it," he said. "I've started a foundation to support the Literacy Center, not in my name but in yours. The Elena Cruz program. It'll help immigrant women learn the languages they need to work with dignity." Her breath caught. "You didn't have to." "I did," he interrupted gently, "because I was wrong. And because you showed me what real strength looks like." For a long moment, neither spoke. The city lights flickered on, painting the water gold. Finally, Elena whispered, "Redemption isn't about money, Daniel. It's about consistency." He nodded slowly. "Then I'll stay consistent." She gave a faint smile. "We'll see." They stood in silence. Two people who had nothing in common but one defining night that changed both of them. As she turned to leave, Daniel called after her, his voice low. "Thank you for not answering arrogance with anger." Elena looked back over her shoulder. "Thank you for learning before it was too late." And then she was gone, leaving Daniel alone under the soft hum of the terrace lights, the sound of the waves whispering the lesson he would never forget. A week later, the Azure Pearl was transformed. Chandeliers glowed brighter, tables shimmered under white linen, and reporters crowded near the entrance. It was the hotel's 10th anniversary gala, but this time, the spotlight wasn't on wealth. At the center of it all stood Daniel Hartman, no longer flanked by bodyguards or assistants, just a man holding a microphone with shaking hands. The murmur faded as he cleared his throat. "A few days ago," he began, "I made a mistake, not in business but in character. I disrespected someone who reminded me that language and dignity are not trophies for the rich." Flashes from cameras flickered like lightning. Daniel's voice steadied. "I once believed success meant power. I was wrong. Success means humanity. It means recognizing worth in others, not just in yourself." He gestured toward the front row, where Elena sat beside Chef Rafik, her hair pulled back neatly, her expression composed but unreadable. Daniel continued, "Tonight, I'm pledging ongoing support to the Elena Cruz program, a fund that will expand language and literacy centers across Europe. For every company I build from here on, this program will receive a share. Because knowledge builds bridges, and bridges heal arrogance." The room erupted in applause, not thunderous but sincere. Omar and Karim stood among the crowd, nodding with quiet respect. Elena remained seated, her eyes glistening. She wasn't moved by the cameras or the applause. She was moved by the fact that he'd finally understood. When the lights dimmed and the orchestra began playing, Daniel stepped off the stage and walked toward her. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. She smiled faintly. "You didn't leave much room to decline. My chef insisted." Rafik laughed nearby. "Someone had to make sure you didn't run from the spotlight again." Daniel's smile was humble. "I wasn't trying to fix an image," he said. "I was trying to fix myself."
Elena nodded slowly.
"And that's rarer than money." They stood in silence for a while, watching the guests talk and laugh. Investors, waiters, volunteers from the literacy center, all mingling without walls between them. Elena turned to him. "You used to command attention," she said. "Now you earn it. That's the difference." He exhaled, almost laughing. "You really are a teacher, aren't you?" "I'm just someone who believes in kindness," she replied. "Then maybe kindness is the best kind of education," he said quietly. She looked at him one last time. "Keep learning, Daniel." With that, she handed him a folded napkin, the same one he had once tossed aside the night of the incident. A faint Arabic phrase was written across it in elegant script. He read it aloud under his breath. "Al-Karama la tuba. Dignity is not for sale." When he looked up again, she was already walking away, blending into the soft glow of the ballroom. Later that night, Daniel found himself on the empty terrace where everything had begun. The city lights shimmered across the water, and the wind carried faint echoes of laughter from below. He set the napkin on the table beside him and watched it flutter slightly. For the first time, he didn't feel powerful or broken, just human. His phone buzzed with a message from Omar. "Partnership reinstated. Welcome back, this time as a better man." He smiled, shaking his head. It wasn't the deal that mattered anymore. It was what it represented. A second chance earned, not bought. Down on the harbor walkway, Elena passed by with a bag of groceries, unaware he was watching. She paused to help a street performer pick up fallen coins, laughed softly, and kept walking. Daniel whispered to himself, "Respect has no price tag." The sea breeze caught his words and carried them into the night. The same words that had once humbled him now freeing him. As the camera would fade out, the scene would hold for a few seconds longer on the glowing city, the calm water, and the sound of Elena's footsteps fading into the distance. A quiet reminder that one act of dignity can ripple farther than wealth ever could. And with that, the story closed not with triumph but with peace.